Growing up in a middle-class family in suburban Ohio, my dad worked long hours as a factory manager, and my mom juggled part-time jobs to supplement her income. Despite their best efforts, money was always a problem in our relationship. I, 34, refused to pay for my brother's extravagant wedding, was not invited, and was alienated by my family. Months later, the wedding is off, and he wants to make amends. Although I was expected to be more independent and self-reliant as we entered our teenage years, I excelled in school, especially in math and science, joined the robotics club, and noticed a stark difference in the way our parents treated Jonathan and me from a young age. He was the baby of the family, born when I was already in elementary school, and our parents lavished him with attention, frequently putting their own needs on the back burner to give him the best of everything. Spent hours playing with computers in our garage. Although my parents were proud of my accomplishments, they lacked the time and resources to fully support my interests. Jonathan, on the other hand, struggled academically but excelled in sports, joining the high school football team and becoming a local celebrity. Our parents never missed a game and worked hard to save money for private coaching and top-notch equipment to foster their athletic abilities. I had my sights set on attending a prestigious tech school out of state despite my stellar test scores and grades, but our parents sat me down and told me they couldn't afford the tuition. Instead, they encouraged me to attend the nearby state university, where I could live at home and save money. Jonathan, on the other hand, received a different message despite his mediocre grades. Our parents were determined to send him to college. I was devastated, but determined to make the most of my circumstances. I threw myself into my studies at the state school, working part-time jobs to cover my expenses and taking out student loans to fill the gaps. It was a difficult few years, but I graduated with honors and got a job at a promising tech startup over the next few years. He went to a good school with a strong football program, and they took out a second mortgage on our house to cover his tuition and living expenses at a private university several states away. After college, Jonathan's path was less clear-cut. His dreams of playing professional football never came true, and he seemed lost without that goal as he bounced between different jobs, including bartending, personal training, and more. I worked tirelessly for 10 years to build my career, constantly upskilling and taking calculated risks that paid off. By my early 30s, I had climbed the ranks to become a senior software engineer at a major tech company, earning a comfortable six-figure salary. Despite the tensions from our childhood, I tried to keep up a relationship with Jonathan. We would go out to dinner when I visited our hometown, and I made an effort to stay involved in his life, but there was always a hint of resentment on both sides. He envied my success, and I couldn't forget the preferential treatment he'd received. My parents continued to support him financially, paying his rent and bailing him out of credit card debt on multiple occasions. About 2 years ago, while working at a local bar, Jonathan met his now fiancée Amy, a 27-year-old woman from a wealthy family who worked in marketing. The two of them clicked right away, bonding over their love of partying and living in the moment. After just 6 months of dating, Jonathan proposed with a ring he had purchased on credit, and when Jonathan announced their engagement, our parents were ecstatic and offered to help pay for the wedding. I tried to stay out of the wedding planning process and concentrate on my own life and career, but a few weeks ago, Jonathan called me out of the blue. He sounded excited and a little sheepish as he explained that their wedding budget had ballooned to over $50,000. Jonathan and Amy, who were on a fixed income in retirement, started planning an extravagant celebration, talking about destination venues and designer dresses, as if money were no object. Jonathan asked if I could chip in $155,000 to help cover costs at a historic mansion with gourmet catering and a live band, promising to reimburse me someday. I was shocked by the request, even though I could theoretically afford it, since $115,000 was more than I had spent on my entire wardrobe over the previous 5 years. I told Jonathan I would need some time to consider it, but he seemed disappointed. Last weekend, our family gathered for dinner at our parents' house. Originally intended to be a lighthearted catch-up, Jonathan swiftly turned the topic to the wedding and began pressuring me to contribute, praising the venue and the significance of having my support. I attempted to sidestep the situation by stating that I wasn't comfortable making such a big commitment, but he became irate and sneered, saying, "Come on, we all know you make bank as some." I'd had a few relationships over the years, but nothing had lasted. I'd always prioritized my career, and while I was proud of my accomplishments, I occasionally wondered if I'd missed out on other aspects of life. Putting those thoughts aside, I calmly said, "Jonathan, I worked very hard to get where I am in my career. My money isn't. Fancy programmer, stop being so stingy and selfish. It's not like you have a family to support or anything." The last straw was his dismissal of my career, which I had put my heart and soul into, and he scoffed, saying, "Oh, please, just sit at a computer all day. It's not like you do anything important or meaningful. Some of us want to have families and live lives outside of work. I told Jonathan firmly that I wouldn't be contributing anything to his wedding after the way he spoke to me. Jonathan burst into rage, calling me a selfish bee and other derogatory terms. Our parents attempted to step in, with Mom urging us to stop fighting and Dad raising his voice to be heard, but I had had enough. I took my purse and left the dinner early, ignoring their calls for me to return. Ever since, my phone has been inundated with messages from Jonathan and our parents accusing me of being cruel and petty for refusing to pay for a minor argument. Jonathan has even threatened to remove me from the invitation. I feel torn and conflicted because, on the one hand, I don't want to reward Jonathan's entitled behavior or let him belittle my career and life choices. But on the other hand, the way he spoke to me brought up a lot of old hurt from our childhood, reminding me of all the times I'd been expected to sacrifice for his benefit. If I don't pay up, our parents are telling me to be the bigger person and let it go for the sake of family harmony. Despite our differences, he is still my brother, and I don't want to ruin his wedding plans. I also know that not helping will probably cause a rift with our parents, who have always expected me to support Jonathan. I'm torn between keeping the peace and standing my ground. Part of me wants to just write the check to end this, but another part feels that would be allowing Jonathan to take advantage of me once more. I could use some outside help. I'm having a hard time making this decision and could use some advice. It's been about 2 weeks since my last post, and regrettably, things with my family have only gotten worse. I wanted to give you an update on everything that's happened. Do you think I'm the fault for not contributing to the wedding, or am I the fault for allowing an argument to ruin such a significant occasion? And receive additional guidance on how to move forward after I initially declined to help with Jonathan's wedding. He and our parents intensified their pressure campaign, sending me guilt-tripping texts and calls about ruining the wedding and destroying the family. They brought up every possible point of contention, from pointing out instances in which Jonathan had previously assisted me, the majority of which I found difficult to remember, to implying that I was envious of his happiness. The constant onslaught was exhausting, but I made an effort. The situation escalated when my mom unexpectedly showed up at my apartment one evening. I had just returned from a long day at work and was hoping for a quiet night in, but when I opened the door, I saw her crying. I knew that if I gave in now, it would set a precedent for Jonathan to come to me for money whenever he wanted in the future, and his insulting remarks about my career still hurt, and I felt he owed me an apology before I could even consider helping him. She begged me to remember all the sacrifices they had made for us growing up, conveniently ignoring the unfair treatment, and explained that she and her father had always dreamed of seeing both of their children married, and how much it would mean to them to have a beautiful wedding for Jonathan. She also explained that it was our responsibility as children to bring them joy in their old age. It was a master class in emotional manipulation, and I felt my resolve faltering. But then she said something that made me resolve again. The idea of my retired parents incurring debt for Jonathan's lavish wedding plans was the wake-up call I needed. So I took action and told my mom that, although I understood their desire to give Jonathan a nice wedding, I couldn't be responsible for funding it. I reiterated that $115,000 was a lot of money, and that I had my own financial goals. In reality, she said that they were considering taking out a loan against their house to cover the wedding costs if I didn't help. My mom didn't take this well. She accused me of being cold-hearted and claimed she didn't recognize the daughter she had raised. She left my apartment in tears, and I spent the rest of the night feeling guilty and conflicted. The following day, I decided to extend an olive branch, calling Jonathan and offering a more modest celebration that was within their means. Responsibilities. I also voiced concern about them taking on debt at their age. I thought this was a reasonable way to show my support without compromising my financial boundaries, so I offered to help with some do-it-yourself decorations or other non-monetary contributions. Jonathan shocked me by telling me that if I wasn't going to pay the full amount, I wasn't welcome at the wedding at all, because my presence would cast a dark shadow under his name, cloud over their special day, and that he didn't want to see his wedding pictures and be reminded of my selfishness. I was brought to tears by the thought of being left out of my own brother's wedding because of money, but it also confirmed my suspicion that Jonathan only saw me as an ATM rather than as a member of the family he truly wanted to celebrate with. When I told our parents about this, I hoped they would realize how irrational Jonathan was being, but they unexpectedly agreed with him, saying I should honor the couple's wishes and that if I truly cared about my family, I would find a way to provide the funds to put things right. I felt as though I was living in a parallel universe where Jonathan's desires overrode my feelings and boundaries, and the entire situation was reminding me of all the times I had been expected to put Jonathan's needs and wants ahead of my own, which culminated last weekend at a family gathering. I chose to go to my cousin's birthday party in the hopes that being in a larger family environment would help to ease the tension. Jonathan and Amy were there, along with our parents, several aunts, uncles, and cousins. As soon as I got there, I could feel the icy atmosphere. Jonathan and Amy were huddled together, and our parents were giving me glares. I tried to concentrate on catching up with other family members, but an hour into the celebration, Jonathan accused me of crashing the event when I was no longer a member of the family. I tried to calmly remind him that I had the same right to attend a family gathering as he did, but he became more agitated, and his face turned red as he raised his voice. Amy joined in, accusing me of being selfish and claiming that I had attempted to ruin their wedding out of jealousy. She made crude remarks about how I was likely to die alone with my computers for company, and our parents watched on in silence. My uncle had to physically restrain Jonathan to keep things from getting worse after he and Amy verbally attacked me in front of the entire family. I left right away, shaken by how violent the situation had become and hurt that no one, not even our parents, had stepped in to defend me. Since then, I've received a barrage of messages from family members, some of whom are my cousins. The most hurtful of all was when my parents called me to ask how I was doing after my brother physically attacked me. They were horrified by Jonathan's behavior and wanted to make sure I was okay, but many people are still supporting him, claiming I provoked him by showing up without an invitation, and that I should have known better than to attend a family gathering after declining to help with the wedding. I'm at a complete loss for how to handle this situation, now that the brother I grew up with seems like a stranger capable of physical violence over a financial disagreement. My parents, whom I always thought would have my back no matter what, seem to care more about keeping Jonathan happy than about my well-being, some of whom had also attended the gathering. They demanded that I apologize to Jonathan and Amy and agreed to contribute to the wedding to make amends. Ruined our family relationships, but I also feel that I can't give in to their demands without losing my dignity completely after how I've been treated, since doing so would seem to validate their behavior and pave the way for future emotional and financial abuse. I've decided to step back from all family gatherings for the foreseeable future. Instead, I'm concentrating on my work and spending time with friends for support. I'm still processing everything that's happened and trying to figure out how to move on. So while it hurts to feel so cut off from my family, I believe it's necessary for my mental health right now. Part of me wants to try one last time to rekindle my relationship with Jonathan and my parents. But another part of me thinks it might be healthier to accept that we might never have the kind of relationship I hoped for. Thank you to everyone who offered advice on my original post. I appreciate the support outside. It's been about a month since my last update, and I wanted to share some unexpected developments in the ongoing saga with my brother and family. The biggest news is that Jan and Amy's wedding has been called off. I learned of this through a group text from my mother, who simply stated that due to unforeseen circumstances, Jonathan and Amy's wedding has been called off. If anyone has experience with similar family rifts or advice on how to proceed, I'd be grateful to hear it. Curious about what had happened, I contacted my cousin Sarah, who is usually up to date on family rumors, and she told me that Jonathan and Amy had a major argument over the wedding budget and guest list. According to Sarah, Amy wanted to invite a number of her college sorority sisters and their partners, the majority of whom Jonathan had met. This would have been a significant addition to the already. When Jonathan objected to the excessive expense, Amy accused him of being more concerned with money than with her happiness. She brought up my refusal to help, claiming that if Jonathan had a better relationship with his family, they wouldn't be experiencing these problems. This led to a heated argument in which many underlying issues in their relationship surfaced. Amy also complained that Jonathan wasn't ambitious enough and that she was sick of him depending on her. While part of me felt vindicated that their extravagant wedding plans had failed, I also felt bad for Jonathan. Jonathan accused Amy of being materialistic and claimed he felt pressured to live beyond his means to keep her happy. The argument went from there, with both of them saying hurtful things they couldn't take back. By the end of it, Amy had thrown her engagement ring at Jonathan and stormed out of their apartment. After thinking about it for a few days, I decided to text Jonathan to let him know that I had heard about the broken engagement and that I was sorry things hadn't worked out. I told him that I was available if he needed someone to talk to, and to my surprise, Jonathan responded positively. I knew how much he had been looking forward to the wedding and starting this new chapter of his life. I know he must be devastated. We exchanged a few more messages before Jonathan suggested that we get coffee to talk things out in person. I was apprehensive at first because of how our last meeting had ended, but I agreed, and we chose to meet at a neutral location, a small cafe halfway between our apartments. He acknowledged that things had gotten out of hand with the wedding planning and that the stress of trying to put together such an expensive event had taken a toll on his relationship with Amy. Jonathan arrived looking exhausted and calm, a far cry from the irate, entitled person I had dealt with at the family get-together. He began by apologizing for his actions at the party, particularly pushing me, saying that he had been overwhelmed by stress and frustration, but that he knew that was no justification for physical violence. Jonathan also acknowledged that he had been going through a lot of introspection since his breakup with Jonathan, admitted that he had always felt inferior to me, which fueled a lot of his anger and entitlement around money. He said he regretted dismissing my career and explained that it came from a place of insecurity about his lack of direction. I opened up too, sharing how hurt I'd been by the preferential treatment. Amy and I had a long, honest talk about our childhood and the resentments that had accumulated over the years. Jonathan asked if we could work on rebuilding our relationship, taking things slowly and communicating more openly. I agreed, feeling cautiously optimistic about the future of our sibling bond, but things are still strained with our parents when I told them about the treatment he received growing up and how it had affected our relationship as adults. We both shed a few tears as we worked through years of pent-up emotions. I've tried to explain that the problems between Jonathan and Amy went far beyond money, but they don't want to hear it. They're still pressuring me to give Jonathan money, implying that they're more worried about whether the wedding was still going to happen than about us mending our relationship. They're upset that I let the wedding be called off by not contributing money. It's frustrating to deal with their obsession with money and status, but I'm trying not to let it derail the progress Jonathan and I have made. We've agreed to meet up regularly and are taking small steps to build trust. I'm also working on maintaining healthier boundaries with our parents. Perhaps he could win Amy back if he could promise her the extravagant wedding she wanted. I've had to set firm boundaries and make it clear that I won't be discussed in these financial terms. I've been extremely grateful for the support of my friends and some understanding family members, like my cousin Sarah, who have given me a sounding board and a reality check when I've doubted myself. I'm cautiously optimistic about the future of my relationship with them, but it's not easy, and there are times when I feel guilty for pulling back, but I know it's necessary for my well-being throughout the entire ordeal. I'm not sure if my parents' attitudes toward money and family responsibilities will ever completely change, but for now, I'm taking things one day at a time and concentrating on my mental health and the relationships that make me happy. Thank you again to everyone who has followed along with this story and offered support and advice. It's been a difficult few months, but I feel like I'm finally. About 2 months have passed since my last update, and I wanted to give you a final update on how things have gone with my family situation. Jonathan and I have been working on repairing our relationship, getting together for lunch or coffee every 2 weeks to talk. It has been difficult at times, but it has also been rewarding to finally address years of accumulated resentment and misunderstandings during one of our recent meetings, Jonathan. We've been talking more about our careers and future goals, and Jonathan revealed that he's felt lost since his football dreams didn't work out, and that he's never really known what he wanted to do with his life. He opened up about his struggles since the breakup with Amy, admitting that he'd fallen into a depression and had started drinking heavily to cope. This revelation worried me, so I gently encouraged him to think about seeing a therapist. To my surprise, he was open to the idea and asked for help finding someone. One good thing that has happened is that Jonathan has begun to show genuine interest in my work. He asked me to explain what I do as a software engineer, admitting that he had never really understood it before. I showed him the fundamentals of coding, and he seemed fascinated. He even asked if I could teach him more, stating that he's considering exploring tech as a career. I've been trying to be supportive without being pushy by sharing some of my own experiences of figuring out my career path. Possible career path. I've been careful not to get too involved because I don't want to open up new sources of income, but I've been helping Jonathan work on his resume and prepare for interviews. He's applied for a few entry-level jobs in tech companies, and although he hasn't received any offers yet, he seems more driven than I've seen him in years. Our parents are still happy that Jonathan and I are getting along better, but they still occasionally argue. There was a heated moment at a recent family dinner when my mom raised the possibility of Jonathan and Amy getting back together. She suggested that if I contributed the money I had promised, which I never did, maybe they could resume their relationship. I shut down comments about how everything would have been fine if I had just paid for the wedding. I'm working on setting firmer boundaries with them, making it clear that I won't discuss financial matters related to Jonathan or the canceled wedding. I've been thinking a lot about my attitudes toward money and success, and while I stand by my decision not to fund Jonathan's wedding, I realize I could have communicated my feelings more clearly from the beginning. I'm trying to be more open about my finances with my family to avoid misunderstandings while still maintaining healthy boundaries. That line of conversation immediately reminded them that Jonathan's and Amy's relationship issues went far beyond wedding finances. Unexpectedly, the whole thing has made me closer to some of my extended family. My cousin Sarah, in particular, has been a huge support system. We've started video chats regularly, and it's nice to have a family member I can talk to honestly without feeling judged. As for my personal life, I've been trying to find a better balance balance between work and socializing. I joined a local tech meetup group and have been enjoying connecting with like-minded people. The future of my family relationships is cautiously optimistic. There's still work to be done, particularly with my parents, but we are headed in the right direction. I am proud of the progress Jonathan and I have made, and I hope we can continue to strengthen our bond as siblings. Outside of work, I have even gone on a few casual dates, though nothing serious has developed yet. Thank you to everyone who has followed this story and offered support and advice. Even if things aren't ideal, I feel like I've grown a lot from this experience and am now more prepared to face family dynamics in the future. Having outside opinions has been beneficial as I've navigated this difficult scenario.